does not weaken, Hackberry, you guys would be in the path of this within the next about 40 to 45 minutes. So you need to start thinking about where you would go as far as a safe place now in Hackberry. And remember, trailers, mobile homes, campers and the like are not a safe place to be, especially in a tornado like this. So if you are in the Hackberry area and you live, and I know there's a lot of still some travel trailers and whatnot, folks, whether it's dealing with hurricane damage or some of the workers that are working in some of the various plants around the area, if you do live in a mobile home, trailer, camper, or anything and around the Hackberry area, for sure, I'm giving you this first alert to give you a little more time to think about where you might go to get out of that, because that is not a safe option during a tornado like this. You've got about another 40 to 45 minutes before this storm could potentially approach the Hackberry area. So we'll keep a very close eye on that storm as well. And I suspect the tornado warning would be extended within the next probably 15. When does this warning go through, Max? If you want to switch to the radar, it'll tell us on the screen.
Yeah,
I think it's till 4:30, is it? Till
4:30.
Till 4:30, okay. So the Weather Service usually tries to make a decision on that before the warning expires. So I would say within the next 20 minutes or so, if this would be extended. Again, it was just issued not that long ago, so I don't expect it to be issued that far out downstream yet. But I can tell you that, yes, that is something I'll be monitoring very closely. And it could even move into southern Kplc Parish if it gains a little more latitude. So that's something to watch as well. Speaking of Kplc, let's go to the radar here. I know some rain is beginning to move into some areas, some light rain moving in around the Vinton area. And good news, this is just rain, but it is actually tied to the same thunderstorm that's producing that tornado that I'm talking about. But this is not severe, but rain for sure going on around the Vinton area along Interstate 10 as you cross the state line through the construction zone. So if you're going to be traveling west soon, or maybe if you're in Texas trying to travel east and you're watching us, probably a good idea just to stay put for now. I would not advise getting on the road, especially through that construction zone along Interstate 10, either on the Louisiana side or the Texas side, as lots of rain is likely already falling. And of course, with the threat of severe weather here too, you don't want to really be on the roads. Be a good idea to stay put wherever you are in Southwest Louisiana, except in Hackberry, where I've told you it'd probably be a good idea if you live in a camper, trailer, mobile home, whatnot. So if you can find something close by, friends, relatives, or a community center, whatnot, to get to, might be a good idea to think about that. Let's widen this view a little bit more. I know we're interrupting program. We're going to stay on this because, one, I have no doubt that this is a tornado that will stay on the ground. I want to keep you advised of that, and we'll get back to Vernon Parish in a moment. But Allen and Jeff Davis Parish first, just a few spotty showers. I'm not seeing anything of great concern here yet. That's good news. We'll keep you updated. Let's move back to the north into Vernon Parish, where we do have this tornado-warned storm that has had a history of at least producing damaging winds across Vernon Parish. In fact, let's zoom in just a little more here to get the Pitkin area to show up. And let's look at the velocity again and show folks the wind gusts that are still ongoing. I will admit, it's not quite as prolific. This may be kind of outrunning some of the energy, but where you see this kind of darker yellow, there's still 60 to 70 mile per hour winds kind of inside this larger area of magenta colors. That's 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, even near 60 or so just outside of the town of Pitkin. So stay in a safe place if you are watching us in and around the Pitkin area. That warning, the tornado warning, does include all of the Pitkin community. This storm should be moving out within the next probably 10 minutes or so, so you don't have much longer before this will exit the area. But again, that's only the severe part. The rain extends much farther west, and we'll be watching that closely for you. But otherwise, the tornado warning is still in effect here as well. Let's kind of zoom back out and kind of give everyone maybe the home view on this, if we can, on the regular radar, and show folks what's going on. And remember, our policy is, as long as we as meteorologists feel there's a threat to anyone in our viewing area, we stay on the air with this. And there's no doubt a threat there in southeast Vernon Parish, and there's definitely a threat incoming into western Cameron Parish, and we'll continue to monitor that. And also notice, farther back to the west yet, there's a separate line going on here from, say, near Jasper, Texas, all the way down to near the city of Houston. This too has to move through, and this is not one of those situations where individual storms out ahead of it would cause this line to weaken. There's energy that's fueling these thunderstorms as well. So it does mean that the severe threat is not just a one and done, if you will. This isn't just we get one thunderstorm to move through and that magically takes the severe threat away. That is not the case with this whatsoever. So this secondary line a little farther west will still have to move through as well, which is why I think we stay with severe weather, at least as a threat, across the area through 7 to 8 o'clock this evening across southwest Louisiana. The farther west you are, the threat would end sooner. The farther east, it would take longer. That's why I'm giving you a large window of time here across the area. Max, you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, we're continuing to watch these storms. As you just said, even these storms still over into southeast Texas, north of Houston, west of Beaumont. Those two still could produce severe weather. There is a severe thunderstorm warning out for Liberty County. So obviously there's still a reason to believe that there's strong gusty winds. And those two will likely move into southwest Louisiana probably within the next hour or so. I want to see how fast those are moving, around 35 miles per hour. If those stay on that same track, I think those storms that you can see on the left edge of your screen there, I'll pause it, those would probably end up into portions of northern Calcasieu, into Beauregard Parish, maybe over into Allen Parish eventually as well, 1 to 2 hours from now. So the good news is, again, this is a fast-moving event, if you will, so we're not talking about something that will last all night, but it is something that we'll continue to have to monitor throughout the afternoon. There's still robust thunderstorms going on even into northern Beauregard Parish now, ranging from Singer, where we were pretty close to a tornado earlier on during the day in the morning hours. We still have rain extending up towards DeRidder vicinity as well. Let's take a look if we can see anything outside in DeRidder right now. I'm going to change our sky cam to that to see if we can actually get a view of what's going on outdoors. Certainly a whole lot of heavy rainfall. Just give me a moment. Here we go. So I'll put it on TV here, and yeah, look at that wind gust, 37 miles per hour at the Skycam location right now. Wouldn't be a shock for even gustier winds than that. You can see lightning flashing across the screen there. So even these storms outside of the two warnings that we've talked about still could be producing strong gusty winds, frequent lightning, heavy rain.
Absolutely, and you can kind of see just the evidence of the wind. Obviously, you can see the camera bouncing a little bit, the wind being driven, and see the rain kind of being driven off the rooftops. That's always a sign that it's very windy. In fact, you know where the weather data icon is on there? Click on that. It'll tell you the max gust. The very top of the screen, that thermometer looking icon there in the program. You'll have to tell us what it says as far as the DeRidder Skycam location. I'll come show you at the very top where there's the exclamation point up there. But there you go. It'll show you what the peak wind gust was at the DeRidder Skycam location and see what that says as far as this
48.5.
So 48 mile per hour wind gust. So that's below severe levels. Officially, to be classified as severe thunderstorm, we have to have wind gust in excess of 58 miles per hour. But even still, 40 plus mile per hour wind gusts can at least cause minor damage. It can cause loose objects to blow around. And of course, we're still in Christmas season. That means there's a lot of Christmas decorations out that can cause those to be blown around as well. So please be advised that being out on the roadway, really not a good idea. I've seen a few cars driving around here in downtown DeRidder. Please, even though it's not severe, I would encourage you to stay home. And look at the temperature too. Dropped to 57 degrees because of the rain cooled air. That's a quite remarkable drop in temperatures. As earlier, I'm sure it was in the mid 70s there at the Skycam location a little earlier this afternoon. You can probably show us the max temperature as well.
Yeah, we, at least at the Skycam location, we started for a max temperature of around 78 degrees.
It was warm early, and it still is in some areas, so that's a big change in temperatures. Let's go back to the radar here, and yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on this camera as well. But again, we're below severe levels. In fact, we'll pull up the radar and show you what's going on there in the DeRidder area as far as rain is concerned across the portions of Beauregard Parish. With
those are the high temperatures from today, 79 in Oakdale.
Yeah, For sure, definitely a warm one this afternoon across much of the area. And it's that heating that's really fueling these thunderstorms. But it's not just the heating. That's one thing with severe weather. It's not a one piece fits all. It's not one thing that causes severe weather. It's several factors, but that heating is definitely one of those factors. Let's zoom in there into southeast Vernon Parish. We'll start with our tornado warned storm. As I said, the one that is still probably the most concerning. And there's still the severe part of this hasn't quite moved out of the Pitkin area. It looks like maybe it is kind of stalled. It's not moving as quickly eastward as it was earlier, which means it's still raining and there's still likely that gusty wind threat going on here, though it looks like this may be trying to weaken a little bit. Let's look at the velocity on that real quick there, if you'll pull that up, Max. And yeah, I'm not seeing those bright colors showing up quite as prolific as they were. There's still some of this magenta back northwest of Pitkin, which is still indicating 50 to 60 mile per hour winds, where we're not seeing that more yellow color inside the magenta, which was 70 to 80 like we had a little earlier within the last about 15, 20 minutes. You can see some of those as it's looping here, showing some of those spots with that, but still likely gusty winds going on across southern portions. It looked like they've trimmed up the tornado warning now. Is that correct? You see that in the chat that they said they've dropped Vernon Parish?
Looks like they did. Let me check. I see that they canceled it for Jefferson County in Texas. That's over in Texas. And Vernon Parish, I don't see anything in the chat, at least yet.
I can see the line there, though. Definitely looks like they have trimmed back this tornado warning out of Vernon Parish. So that's good news, but I still want to stress that there are still gusty winds going on here in and around the Pitkin area. So please, I would still encourage you to stay in your safe place for at least a little bit longer here around the Pitkin area. Widespread 60, 70 mile per hour winds can still cause damage, and it may be too late for those of you in Pitkin, but remember, when power goes out, obviously your TV is going to go off. Make sure you keep our First Alert weather app handy with you and keep that charged. Those of you outside of right here in Vernon Parish, if you're watching us anywhere else, make sure your phone is charged. Get it charging now and keep it on the charger as long as you can, because you can still watch us streaming on our weather app. And if you go to the app, just simply scroll down and find the live video, and you'll need to select the option that says Skycam or breaking news, and you can watch our live stream right there. I will admit there's a slight delay, as there always is when you're talking about something streaming versus television. It's about a 30 to 45 second delay, but we'll continue to be on there as well. If you have to go to a safe place in your home or the power just gets knocked out, you can still watch us on your smartphone or any other smart device if you have our weather app downloaded. And I do encourage you to download our weather app. If you don't have it yet, simply go to your app store and search KPLC Weather, and you'll be able to find the app right there. And I would encourage you to do that now before things get bad, especially if you're farther south. Let's kind of reset the situation here and see where we stand as far as status situation for southwest Louisiana. There's the radar. Lots of rain going on in Vernon, Beauregard. Then there's kind of a separate cell going on from western Calcasieu into western Cameron Parish, and that extends across Sabine Lake. And unfortunately, our computer here is kind of showing the lightning going away. That is not the case. It's been an ongoing problem I've seen this afternoon with the computer program, unfortunately, but I assure you it is still lightning quite prevalent with this storm. Let's look at the velocity, because this is likely getting close to getting off of Sabine Lake, and looks like it may have officially or about to move back ashore over the eastern shore of Sabine Lake right here. Still a pretty prolific looking signature, and the National Weather Service is going to be making a decision soon on what to do with this warning. It's set to go through 4:30, but it's also getting closer to the edge of this warning itself. And that's the part I've been stressing for the last 20 minutes or so, that this will likely continue eastward unless it miraculously weakens. Let's hope it does, but it's still not showing any signs of that just yet. So once again, I cannot stress enough, if this holds together, this will likely impact areas of central Cameron Parish, northern Cameron Parish, maybe even into southern Calcasieu Parish. In fact, Max, let's widen out just a little bit on this view. And let's do a little bit wider yet, and let's do a storm track on this, and we can keep this forecast kind of track a little wide. I'd always rather warn too many of you than not enough, and kind of put this all the way east, at least past, yeah, about there or so. If it were to hold together, this is some of the locations it could reach and the approximate time if it were to hold together. So Hackberry, that's my biggest concern at the moment, because you guys no doubt are closest to the path this could take. Somewhere between 4:45 and 5 o'clock, if this were to hold together, is when this could reach your area. Let's focus more on the earlier end of that time spectrum, closer to 4:45, if not a little sooner than that. It could reach your area if that does hold together. Then crossing over Calcasieu Lake, maybe getting toward the Big Lake area by 4:45 to 5 o'clock, and then toward Grand Lake a little later than that, sometime just after 5 o'clock. Let's make sure that this is still using 35 mile per hour.
It is.
Okay, good. Wanted to make sure, as some of those times look a little slower this time around. And then if it were to hold together, even areas much farther east across southeastern Calcasieu Parish, western Jeff Davis Parish, around the Bell City area, within another, say, hour and a half from now. That's a longer ways out in time, obviously, and we'll see if it holds together that long. But I certainly want to give those of you in Hackberry this first alert that this storm is definitely going to be heading in your direction if this warning is kind of extended or a new warning is issued, whichever way you want to look at that, because it's still showing signs. Let's clear this off and show you what I'm talking about. It is still quite prevalent. There should be a new scan coming in on the radar here real soon as well. And there's not a defined hook feature on just the radar here, not as much as there was earlier, but it's right there, that little kind of in notch right in here, but it's much more visible. I'll leave my hand here as Max switches this over to the velocity side, which will show the wind, and you'll notice that that matches up quite prevalent where that is going on. And of course, this is just now moving ashore into western portions of Cameron Parish, coming off of Sabine Lake is where that is going to be moving across real soon. This should stay just north of Johnson Bayou and pretty much everyone along Highway 82 in Cameron Parish, even up along Middle Ridge Road and their areas north of Johnson Bayou. I think this stays just north of you, but it's going to be close. In fact, we can zoom in a little closer on this, Max, and make some of the roads pop in that are farther south, closer to Johnson Bayou, just to prove that this will stay north of your area. You can kind of just pull this map toward the north, if you will, and kind of show folks farther north that you are a little bit beyond this tornado warning and where the tornado is at itself. But right there is where that is at, dangerously close. In fact, some of you in Johnson Bayou may have an interesting view of this if you were to be outside. I wouldn't encourage it, but I realize it is daylight, and it probably would be easy to see this if it's not too rain-wrapped. In fact, let's kind of widen this out just a little bit, Max, and go back to the regular radar. And you can kind of see that there is rain that extends down to near Johnson Bayou, but that may be visible if you are close enough to see it. And again, we'll see what the National Weather Service is going to do with this. I think this storm is going to get close to outrunning the tornado warning here within the next probably 5 minutes or so. So going to be making this decision on whether or not to reissue a warning. And I think based on the radar, there's no doubt that's going to be coming likely for much of central Cameron Parish. I'm seeing other showers starting to pop up, Max, am I not?
Yeah,
you want to address those real quick?
I was about to say, yeah, there looks like there are other showers starting to take place over, looks like Calcasieu Lake, but northern Cameron on the northern edge of town, closer to Hackberry, getting closer to Grand Lake. They seem to have picked up a little bit of steam as well in terms of how heavy the rain is. So those are going to continue moving to the north, likely eventually into central Calcasieu Parish. You see a couple additional showers even farther north near Carlis, South Lake Charles, near Preon Lake that have started to pop up as well. And we'll kind of move closer together to where the thunderstorm we were just tracking is. Not the tornado, but just the thunderstorm itself.
If you want to go up north, I see they've issued a severe thunderstorm warning for Beauregard and Allen. If you want to address that one real quick, too.
Yeah, so this was the southern edge of those thunderstorms in Vernon, Beauregard, Allen Parish we've been watching, well, going to move into Allen Parish. Remember, we just saw some gusty winds over in DeRidder not too long ago. And it looks like the leading edge of that's starting to move through Sugartown, Bundick Lake, Dry Creek. That's going to continue pushing off to the east, and that will end up into Allen Parish as well. So I'll put the velocity back on to see some of these winds, and it does look like, especially in Beauregard Parish, some of those winds have increased quite a bit, moving closer towards Dry Creek. Switch back to the regular radar for a second, and that is kind of on the leading edge of where you can see the rain, so maybe rain pushing out from some of that storm.
Yeah, and I will also point out the National Weather Service does this with severe thunderstorm warnings. They put these tags, as they're called, in them. One, the threat is considerable, which is a high threshold. And it also is tagged with this word, tornado possible, because anywhere along this line, just as I had described a little earlier in Vernon Parish, along that line anywhere, there could be a brief tornado that could develop anywhere along that line. But yeah, that velocity is definitely something to keep a very close eye on. You want to put that back on real quick there, Max, the actual velocity, not the storm relative. That'll show us those strong winds, as you talked about there, kind of just northwest. Maybe it was the storm relative that was showing it more prolific. Yeah. You can see the winds there just around the Bundick Lake area, the north end of the lake, showing some very strong winds. Also, I see some kind of just west of Sugartown as well. Radar showing 70+ mile-per-hour winds going on here. While this is not a tornado warning, can't stress enough that a large area with winds like that can cause just as much damage as a minor EF0 tornado can, if not more, because it's spread out over large areas. And I suspect there's fairly large power outages that may be ongoing here across portions of Beauregard Parish as well, because we have a lot of trees in this area. When trees fall, they can take down various power lines. You can see the radar updated and still kind of seeing this yellow shaded area here just north of Bundick Lake. That's where there's likely the strongest winds. 70 to 80+ mile-per-hour winds are ongoing there. In fact, if you want to clear those queries and maybe kind of query closer to where that golden color is showing up right inside that warning, again, I suspect that is probably much higher along Louisiana Highway 1147. There's an 86 mile-per-hour gust just north of there, just north of the Bundick Lake community. Still the same 80+ mile-per-hour winds going on. Dry Creek, this is heading in your direction very soon. Those of you that live in and around the Dry Creek area along Highway 113, heads up. You're already included in this severe thunderstorm warning, but heads up, this whole complex is moving east, so you're going to have dangerous straight line winds heading in your direction in and around the Dry Creek community within the next, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes. So this is not a tornado warning. I would still encourage you to treat it as if it were a tornado warning and get to a safe place, just because of the straight line winds like this. What those storms were able to do Thursday night, where they caused some trees to fall on homes. Treat it as if this was a tornado warning and get to a safe place, just because the winds are this high. 60+ mile-per-hour winds are one thing, but when we're seeing 80+ mile-per-hour winds showing up, that's a totally different situation that can cause widespread and significant damage that's likely ongoing around Bundick Lake, kind of a couple of areas inside this larger complex of thunderstorms. In fact, let's switch back to the radar on this, and you can see the velocity showed an update as that moved a little farther east. Maybe widen this just a little bit, to include. That warning goes all the way down, at least along Highway 113, along the Allen and Beauregard Parish line, just north of the Reeves area. It does not include those of you in Reeves, but it is just north of you. But you can see this line is actually pushing more southeast. That is another sign that this is strong outflow winds that are pushing this whole complex kind of east-southeastward. And of course, those of you in Allen Parish are under this severe thunderstorm warning as well. It's going to be a little longer before it reaches your area. In fact, let's do a storm track on that. We'll just assume it's about the same speed and kind of show folks along this line and kind of move it across Allen Parish to give folks in Oakdale and Oberlin and Kinder, or just north of Kinder, an idea when this could arrive. And we'll extend that off to the east through Allen Parish, because I know a lot of you are watching in Allen Parish might be thinking, well, there's nothing going on yet, Wade, and that's true. There's nothing severe yet, except the very northwest corner of Allen Parish. But we'll do a storm track on this and show you where these storms are going as they move move off toward the east-southeast at around 30 to 35 miles per hour across southwest Louisiana. There we go across Allen Parish. Just to give you a heads up on timing of this, around Oakdale by around 4:45. So that's in about, 20, 25 minutes from now. Around Oberlin in about 25 to 30 minutes from now. Kinder, you guys might be on the end of this where it's not quite as severe, but still within the next 20 to 30 minutes. Mitty, though, you guys are much closer to this, and it will arrive much sooner. So please, I still would encourage you, treat this as if it were a tornado warning just to be safe. With 70, 80 mile per hour winds showing up on radar, it would be smart to get to a safe place. We've seen damage before with that can be, again, just as prolific as any small tornado can produce. Let's go back to the radar because we should be getting close to a decision as well.
Yeah, we do have a decision.
Okay, I'll let you handle that real quick.
Yeah, so the National Weather Service, they extended the warning in Cameron Parish. Let me get this information off the screen. I'll zoom out here. And yeah, so they extended, let me go back. The warning now includes more of Cameron Parish. It goes right up to the Calcasieu-Cameron state line. I'll zoom in here a bit more, and you can see the outline of that box where Hackberry, you're included in that warning now. This tornado itself still off to the west, but it is getting closer, and that warning it does go again right up to the Intracoastal Waterway along the parish line there. Wouldn't be a shock if even some portions of southern Calcasieu were to get included in that a little bit later on, so we'll continue to keep an eye on that. I looked in, according to the National Weather Service chat, apparently a new debris signature with that storm in western Cameron Parish was spotted on radar. I'll try to get that up. And yeah, it does appear, if you look kind of in the middle of your screen now where you have that bluer, greener dot right there, if I put the storm or the velocity back on, I'll toggle back and forth between them. Still can see a very impressive velocity signature with those bright reds and greens. And when I go back to the debris signature, it does look like that the debris signature is exactly where you would expect it to, correlated right exactly with the couplet itself where those reds and greens met. So it is still, even though over the western part of the parish, it seems like it picked up something, maybe a tree, part of a marsh, anything out there. So it's still a very strong storm. And that too is going to continue getting very close to Hackberry within the next 30 minutes or so, maybe a little sooner. Yeah,
you know, that is, I've said it all along for the last now, 30, 45 minutes. That is my biggest concern. I know there's a lot of folks in around the Hackberry area that are still in travel trailers, campers, and mobile homes and whatnot. Remember, those are never a safe place to be during a tornado, and you need to be thinking about getting to a safe place. You've still got a little bit of time. In fact, if you want to widen that out just a little bit, maybe Max, and you can see Hackberry, you still got a little time, but you're getting to the point where you need to start thinking about being in a safe place or just staying where you are, because we don't want you out on the roads caught in a storm either. That's certainly an even worse scenario. Being in a vehicle is never a safe place either during any kind of tornado or anything like that. So while I would encourage you to, if you can, get to a safe place, if you live in a trailer, mobile home, camper, or something like that in and around Hackberry, do so very quickly, and you don't need to go far. I know there are several substantial buildings in and around the town of Hackberry. You can get there and just stay there for a little bit until this clears out. I'm sure the folks at Brown's Grocery there would not mind if you come in and hang out with them for just a little bit as this storm passes through. But again, please exercise a lot of caution with this storm. I don't like to hype things up, but this storm has had a history of producing likely damage as it started over near the Houston area and has been very prolific on radar. And the debris signature is going to be a little harder to determine as this is moving over relatively open marsh. Obviously, across Cameron Parish, there's not a lot of quote-unquote debris to pick up for this storm other than maybe some marsh grass and some water out of the marsh already. And water does not count as debris because the radar can't determine the difference between water that's been pulled up and water that's falling in the form of rain. The way the debris signature works is the radar can tell the difference between an actual raindrop falling or something that is not a raindrop, that is not a uniform shape. A raindrop is going to be round or kind of oval shaped and uniform in shape. Something that is debris is going to be odd shaped, whether it's a 2x4, a shingle, or grass that has been picked up or anything else, is not one defined shape. The radar can see the difference in that. So when we say debris, that's what the radar is seeing. It obviously cannot determine whether it is actual debris or just something that is not a raindrop falling, but that's how that really works real quick. Let's go to the regular radar view on this, because even though the tornado part of this is not there, you're already dealing with rain in and around Hackberry. And again, I do apologize, the lightning is not showing up. It is still lightning. I assure you there is a lot of lightning going on with this thunderstorm. Still, this notch-shaped feature showing up here on radar is a classic signature we look for. The velocity signature is still here with this thunderstorm as well. We can switch to the velocity on that real quick as well, Max, and you can kind of see right in here, that is where this tornado is still likely ongoing, and it's still very prolific looking here on radar to me. I see no reason why this isn't still ongoing here across western Cameron Parish. It's not made it to Hackberry yet. You do still have some time yet, but it is getting closer and closer to you, probably within the next 15 to 20 minutes or so, I would say, as when that could arrive in and around the Hackberry community. Let's go to wide view once again. I always try to keep everyone updated because I realize we're interrupting program for a lot of folks here and want to keep you advised of what's going on. If you're watching, let's head to Beauregard and Allen Parish. We do have this severe thunderstorm warning that is still in effect, where we do have this tornado possible tag on this storm, and as promised, it's now moving into western portions of Allen Parish. And let's look at the velocity on that. I'm not really seeing any great signs of a tornado along this line, but I can't stress enough, right along the leading edge is where that could occur. But it's this kind of orange or yellowish color inside this magenta where there could be still 70 to 80 mile per hour winds that could be occurring. The radar is showing them, and that's at the radar beam height, which at this point from the Fort Johnson radar is probably less than 1,000 feet above the ground, but it's not at the ground, but likely that would be reaching the ground or very close. So we'll treat it as if it is reaching the ground, and that's going on now from Elizabeth down through the Grant community around the Sugartown area, down near the Y along Highway 26, down through the Dry Creek area along Highway 113, and then the wind is a little weaker as you go farther south from that yet, but obviously it's already ongoing here from Elizabeth to Grant to Mitty. Oakdale to Oberlin, Kinder, you guys, at least Oakdale to Oberlin, you guys are next in line for this within probably the next 15 to 20 minutes. So heads up, it is going to get very windy along the rest of Allen Parish within the next 15 to 20 minutes for sure. So just treat this as if it's a tornado warning. That would be my best advice, just to be safe, even though this is a severe thunderstorm warning, not a tornado warning. It's always better to be safe than sorry in this sort of situation, especially with storms that have had a history of producing damaging winds. I suspect there's power outages. Can't stress enough, maybe you've just tuned in and started watching our coverage. This may sound repetitive for some of you, but make sure you keep your cell phones charged. If you're in an area where there's still electricity at your home, keep your cell phones charged. That way you can continue watching our coverage over on our First Alert weather app. You can go, and once you open our weather app, go down, you'll find the live stream option, and make sure you click on Skycam or breaking news as the option to be able to continue watching on our app. And I encourage you to continue to watch on the app at least once power goes out, because that way you'll know when things are past your area. But we still want to stay in those safe places from Sugartown down through Dry Creek, even though it has been raining for a while. Still seeing some very strong winds in this vicinity, even along Highway 26 and Highway 113, that is, and yeah, also along Highway 26 there between Sugartown to Dry Creek. Likely some very prolific winds are ongoing with this storm. You want to kind of take things over for a second, Max?
Yeah, for sure. So we're still tracking, of course, those very strong winds moving into Allen Parish now, even still into western Beauregard Parish near Dry Creek and Sugartown. Again, those will continue to keep on pushing off to the east. A lot of heavy rain, lightning still associated with that. Here's a look at the regular radar, and I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see more of the parish here. And yeah, it's still moving to the east, excuse me, and for the rest of Allen Parish, such as Oakdale, Oberlin, getting closer to the Midi and Harmony communities right now. Again, that's going to happen within, say, the next 5 to 30 minutes or so. We'll zoom in a little bit off to the west. Let's go take a look at the rest of Beauregard Parish. Still some rain across the parish, ranging from near Bancroft, Singer, DeRitter, into Vernon Parish. The leading edge of those stronger storms is basically moving out of the parish right now. Still a lot of rain across the parish. I also want to take a closer look into Calcasieu Parish and Jeff Davis Parish. Not as much in Jeff Davis, a couple showers near Hathaway. We are starting to see some heavier rainfall, though, move into Cameron Parish, ranging from Vinton along Interstate 10, getting into Carlist, Sulphur, even a couple of newer showers that may be starting to approach the Lake Charles Regional Airport to see some heavier rain into Moss Bluff as well. Nothing that looks severe, but it is something we'll continue to keep an eye on. And I don't want to forget about those storms still ongoing over into southeast Texas. There's still some robust thunderstorms extending in this line from just north of Beaumont all the way down, even still just to the east now of the Houston vicinity. And there's still a severe thunderstorm warning out there too, just north of Beaumont, where we still could be receiving some gusty winds. I'll take a look at the velocity again. Here's one of our products. Maybe it shows up a little bit better on the other one. It does. We especially over the last 20 minutes or so, we had some stronger winds with those storms, maybe not quite as intense, but again, the atmosphere is still unstable, still supports strong wind gusts with those thunderstorms, and they're still on track to move into portions of Calcasieu Parish, especially along and north of I-10, and even into Beauregard Parish as well. So we'll continue to keep a very close eye on all of those. I'll zoom out once again, and we'll go even into Cameron Parish now, where the eastern part of the parish, there's not quite as much activity. I do see a couple showers that have popped up basically near the Creel vicinity, and we'll continue to keep an eye on these showers as well. It is possible storms or cells that try to get going out ahead of other activity, they can try to intensify. It hasn't done so quite yet, but it is something that bears watching. We are, of course, watching that tornado that's approaching the Hackberry vicinity. Look at the National Weather Service chat room with the NWS, and it looks like another severe thunderstorm warning is coming out. That's going to include Allen, Beauregard, Calcasieu, Jeff Davis parishes. Let's try to see if it's on our, so it did update on our screen. We'll go take a look at that as well. And it's all still part of the southern edge of that line of showers and storms into Allen Parish right now. That's starting to move southeastward. That's going to clip northern parts of Calcasieu Parish, and especially near Moss Bluff, maybe even Gillis, and then continue on into Jeff Davis Parish as well. And you can see, again, a few other showers trying to get going out ahead of that. Nothing severe with those yet, but they have the potential to become, so we'll continue to keep an eye on that. And it looks like when those storms arrive into those areas, gusty winds, for now, still the primary threat. Of course, tornadoes will be possible too. So that warning, it looks like, goes out until 5:30 p.m.
And the reason this warning may look weird, if you will, is because, as you said, Max, these storms are kind of moving southeast. That's the same idea of that what's going on in Beauregard. This is kind of being pushed southeast. That's why this warning kind of looks this way. This is not for the activity that's over the Lake Charles area moving northeast. This is for the part that's in the very southeast corner of Beauregard that is pushing more southeastward, where we're getting those 50, 60, 70 mile per hour winds that may be ongoing. So much of Jeff Davis Parish is included in this severe thunderstorm warning that we are continuing to monitor. And in fact, I'll keep talking about that, Max. If you want to maybe look at the Jennings Skycam, at least off camera on your end, and maybe make sure that it is pointed around to the northwest, looking across the airport. We'll see if we may see see anything with that. It's going to get shrouded, I'm afraid, in clouds and eventually some rain too. And speaking of rain, it is raining here in Lake Charles. I've heard a few rumbles of thunder here at our downtown studios. Nothing terribly close yet, but definitely been quite a bit of rain already falling. And the tornado warning is still in effect across Cameron Parish, including the Hackberry area. I will admit, I was looking at it off camera while Max was talking to me. It's not quite as prolific looking as it was earlier. That was a good sign, but these storms can sometimes what we call cycle. They can go through a time where they weaken a little bit. The environment, if it stays prone to for development, can recycle or re-strengthen. And that's still a possibility with this storm. So just because it doesn't look as prolific, I don't want to ignore it or make it sound like this is not still a problem. And we'll continue monitoring that. And I do want to mention one more time, because we're starting to affect more and more folks with more and more population as well, that one, keep your cell phone charged as long as you can. That way it'll be fully charged, or at least as much charge as possible. So in case power gets knocked out, obviously if power goes out, you're going to lose your television. And of course, if you're watching on a satellite, you may lose your television service anyway. Even if you still have electricity, the rain fade can happen. If that happens, or any other thing causes you not to be able to watch on television, make sure you have our First Alert weather app on your smartphone. If you don't, go to your app store right now, search for KPLC weather, download the app. Once you have the app, or if you already have it, open it, scroll down in the app, and you'll find a tab that says live video, live streaming, or something like that. When you click on that, there'll be a few options there. You'll want to find the one that says Skycam or breaking news. That will allow you to be able to watch our coverage right there in the palm of your hand, whether it's on your smartphone, your smart device, tablets, or maybe even on television if you have a Roku or any of those smart devices attached to your TV. Of course, as long as you have power for that, you can watch on there as well. But again, you'll want to find that tab that says Skycam and breaking news. You'll be able to stream along and watch us right there in the palm of your hand. I encourage you to do that. Maybe you go ahead and get it going. That way, if power is knocked out in your area, you'll be already kind of ahead of the game and won't have to go find all those tabs and go ahead and do that, especially if you're in the path of this tornado warning, which is in the Hackberry area. Max, I saw you looking at a few things. Are we okay over there still?
Yeah, we're still okay. I was just looking over at the cell in Western Cameron Parish, getting closer to Hackberry.
Yeah,
I think it actually...
Let's zoom in a little closer on that if we can here real quick.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it actually is trying to cycle. If I go to the velocity, will show up. So here's the couplet we were tracking at first. You can see it was really strong. It's across the state line. Then it starts to weaken a little bit, but it looks like a newer signature is starting to develop.
It's definitely still there for sure, regardless. Yeah, it was looking a little less pronounced a few scans ago, but still there, and it's definitely still there, I think, no doubt. And I doubt the debris shows up because, as I've explained earlier, we're over the open marsh. As you well know, if you live in Cameron Parish, there's not a whole lot here other than maybe some marsh grass that can pull up as it moves across. So there's not much quote-unquote debris to be lofted into the air to see. That's where, with all the tools we have in meteorology, sometimes you have to use some common sense and think about where it's actually moving over, that there's nothing for it to actually pick up, if you will. But the velocity, which is the wind, and let me explain how this works one more time in case you weren't watching earlier. What we look for are these different colors. Red, as it indicates up here in the banner, means winds that are blowing away, and that's from the Lake Charles National Weather Service radar, so winds that would be basically southwesterly here. Green means the winds are blowing toward the radar, which in this case would be more of a wind from the southwest blowing toward the northeast. And when you see those kind of overlap or right over top of each other, that means there could be rotation right there. And I'm going to leave my hand here, Max. If you'll switch this back to the regular radar, you'll notice this matches up kind of underneath the thunderstorm, but it is still where I would suspect there could be a tornado ongoing inside of this thunderstorm. So definitely still signs here that, and this is getting close to Hackberry. Here we are right here. In fact, if you want to move the radar over just a little bit and maybe zoom in a little bit closer on this, we'll show you. There's the community of Hackberry. Rain is fairly light for now, but you can see that heavier rain is just to the west and will be coming in likely within the next I'd say 10 to 15 minutes at best. So heads up, things are about to get much worse, and it's probably already very windy in Hackberry, so you need to be in the safe place now. And I know it sounds like we're focusing just on Hackberry. That's because, one, it's the only community here basically along Highway 27 in northern Cameron Parish. And of course, if you live just outside of here, you should be counting yourself included in that. But Calcasieu, we are out of this tornado warning. We are not included. Anyone in Calcasieu is not included in this warning. Unless this storm gains some latitude, we may not be. If anyone were to be included, maybe the eastern part when this warning has to be extended if it does hold together as it moves off toward the east. In fact, let's widen just a little bit here, Max, and I want to do another storm track on this and kind of show folks, just give you a first alert. If this holds together, let's track this across the southeastern corner of Calcasieu and the rest of northern Cameron Parish over the next hour or so and just give you an idea of where this would go and a timeline of when it could arrive. So I'm going to focus on the areas more direct in the path. You can see the Sweet Lake area by around 5:15, so that's in, let's say, 20 to 30 minutes from now. And then areas closer to the Bell City area around 5:30. So we're looking at about 30 to 45 minutes from now, and then areas of southern Jeff Davis Parish sometime after 5:30. I won't focus too much on the time that far out, but just a first alert. You've got about an hour or so before that specific storm could reach southern portions of Jeff Davis Parish. But that's not our only concern in Jeff Davis Parish. Of course, we've got the severe thunderstorm that's ongoing in the northwest corner of Jeff Davis Parish that is actually moving more toward the southeast and bringing some gusty winds across the very northwest corner of Jeff Davis Parish. And it's kind of merging with the rain coming up across Calcasieu Parish. That'll be an interesting scenario to see how this plays out over the next about, let's say, 5 to 15 minutes here. When you get cell mergers like this, sometimes that can cause storms to strengthen. We'll see if that is going to happen where we've got the rain that's coming up across Calcasieu Parish, merging with rain across portions of southeastern Beauregard, the very northwestern Jeff Davis Parish, and southern Allen Parish. And just for reference, of course, there's the Topsy community, the Indian Village community here along Highway 383. Of course, the Kplc television transmitter located about right here in northwest Jeff Davis Parish. Those of you in Jeff Davis know where that's at most likely. And again, that whole area is under the threat for strong gusty winds, 50 to 60, maybe even in excess of that. In fact, let's look at the velocity one more time in this area to show folks what the radar is showing. I'm not seeing anything as prolific as what we were seeing up in portions of Beauregard Parish earlier this afternoon. These colors look a little different because we're switched radars. We're looking at the Lake Charles radar versus when we were talking in Beauregard Parish earlier, we were looking at the Fort Johnson radar, and the winds are going to be a different direction, which means the toward and away is a different vantage point depending on which radar you are looking. But you can see that green kind of advancing southeast, gusty winds likely moving across the very northwest corner of Jeff Davis Parish here for sure, and again across much of Allen Parish too, where there is still the severe thunderstorm warning. Let's go a little farther north up US Highway 165. You can see the heavier, the stronger winds here, and again the colors change because the radar difference here. The toward and away is different from the radar vantage point here. These winds are blowing away from the radar toward the southeast, and where we're having that kind of magenta color, which is across a majority of northern Allen Parish, radar at least indicates the possibility of 60 to 70 mile per hour winds going on here. While there's not a tornado warning there, that is still strong enough to cause at least minor damage. It would be a good idea to at least stay very weather alert, and still gusty winds like that back toward the Sugartown and Dry Creek area as well. Let's go to the wider view one more time because I do want to keep a very close eye on things going on to our west as well, because this isn't just a one and done situation. If you want to pull up the radar there, you can see a separate thunderstorm north of Beaumont, which may be trying to show some signs of weakening, which would be good. By that, I mean, notice there's far less red and orange. It's more green, but there's still red here. We'll see if that's a sign that maybe these storms that moved across may have caused some of this to weaken, but that's not a scenario I want to count on too much. And of course, the other thing, I see one flash flood warning, I will admit too, that is a concern that there could be some localized, at least street flooding. At least 1 to 2 inches of rain could occur out of some of these thunderstorms, possibly more than that, especially where we get these heavier thunderstorms setting for an extended period of time over one specific area. But let's talk about some good news, and that is that overall, I think the threat of severe weather is winding down in Vernon Parish. Yes, you guys still have some rain, but I'm not seeing anything back to the west that looks all that suspicious. So I try to endeavor when we talk about severe weather to tell you where things are severe, obviously, or bad, but also when things are good. When there's good news, try to tell you that, and certainly not seeing any significant signs across most of Vernon Parish. The exception, those of you still near Pitkin, there's still quite a bit of lightning and heavier rain, likely still some gusty winds here, but the rest of you in Vernon Parish are mostly clear. I'm not willing to say that yet for Beauregard Parish, just because we do still have some heavier rain just to the west across the state line that may still produce severe weather, but I think the odds of it are lower with those specific thunderstorms versus this activity that is moving across portions of eastern Beauregard into Allen Parish. And let's look at the velocity one more time here across portions of Allen Parish. We're still tracking this very large area of strong gusty winds where this kind of magenta color is showing up. That is pushing toward the southeast, already affecting areas from Oberlin down to near Oakdale now with very gusty winds. So very windy conditions here. And you can see the radar is 50 to 60 plus mile per hour winds. Not as bad as earlier, but one thing to mention here, we're getting farther away from the radar, which means we're looking higher up into the atmosphere, which means it may not be sampling the strongest winds either. Max, I'll send it to you for a second.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll continue to keep an eye on these storms and winds over into Allen Parish. And it looks like the leading edge of that's really getting along Highway 165 near Oberlin, Kinder, and eventually we'll continue to move off to the south and east. So that's going to put it into Jeff Davis Parish as well, hence that severe thunderstorm warning. I'll go back to the regular radar for just a second here, and you can still see some of that heavier activity across the parish. That line extends back down, getting into the east or the western portion of Jeff Davis Parish, kind of merging with those showers and storms now moving into Lake Charles. And again, all that activities will continue to move on off to the south and east. Or Fenton, Welsh, Lacassine, you guys are next in line for that. And eventually over into Jennings as well. Over into Kplc Parish now, we'll focus a little bit more around the Lake Charles area. That's where we have some heavy rain ongoing, a lot of lightning. And you can see, again, some of the lightning coming back. That has to do with our system. That's not with the storm itself. We've had a lot of lightning throughout the entire afternoon with these storms. Just the radar here is finally getting some of that data back a little bit. Nevertheless, heavy rain, gusty winds, even if they're not quite at severe limits, they're still moving through portions of Carlist, Sulphur into Lake Charles now, and that's going to continue moving off to the east. And I'll pause the loop here, and I'll go again into Cameron Parish, where we're still tracking that line of showers and storms, that tornado-warned storm. We also have a couple of showers starting to, or thunderstorms, I should say, starting to pop up just out ahead of it. Maybe near just south of the Illinois plant vicinity, maybe some of that over unpopulated marshes or closer to the Big and Sweet Lake areas. That's moving off to the north and east, and we'll continue to watch that. Right now, it doesn't look like it's at severe levels, but sometimes storms that are by themselves like that are individual, can try to strengthen. So that's something we'll continue to keep an eye on as that moves into Jeff Davis Parish probably within the next 30 to 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, those type of thunderstorms, as you mentioned, this one here close to the Gibbstown Bridge, those are ones that concern me too. When you get these thunderstorms that can develop out ahead of a larger complex, sometimes those can quickly turn severe. As Max said, we're not seeing signs of that yet, and let's hope we don't. But just a first alert, that's moving northeast into Jeff Davis Parish, so we'll keep a very close eye on that. The tornado warned storm, as Max said, over kind of just near the Hackberry area, not as pronounced now, and that is a good sign. The velocity signature is not quite as pronounced here. This doesn't look as red and green kind of next to each other. Well, yes, but it's more what we call broad in nature. There's not a well-defined particular couplet showing up here anymore. So it's possible that this is no longer producing a tornado. The National Weather Service is obviously going to leave this warning going for at least a little while longer to make sure that nothing changes in that regard. And it's soon to cross Highway 27 here, maybe just south of Hackberry, maybe where this goes if there is still a tornado on the ground here. But let's put the radar here. Even if we don't have a tornado, we're still dealing with a lot of rain, very heavy rain, likely very gusty winds. And of course, you can see all the lightning that is showing up as well. Yes, a prolific amount of lightning going on here across much of north central portions of Cameron Parish in and around the Hackberry community. And let's widen this out just a smidge here, because obviously this is going to cross Calcasieu Lake. So heads up, places like Deatonville, Big Lake, then over toward Grand Lake, down near the A-Bears Landing area. This is moving across the lake. And at the very least, it's still going to mean the same thing I just described. Gusty winds, a lot of rain, a lot of lightning is heading in your direction. You're probably already hearing the thunder anyway, but the actual lightning is going to be getting much closer to those of you on the eastern side of the Calcasieu River in northern Cameron Parish. And we'll see if the tornado part of this can strengthen again. We certainly hope it doesn't. I definitely do not want to see that, but it is something we'll continue to monitor very closely over the next 10 to 15 minutes, because this warning is set to go through 5:15. So we've got some time to watch this and see how it progresses, though it's going to get close to running out of the edge of the tornado warning, which is basically down the middle of the shipping channel is where the edge of the warning is at. The western half of Cameron Parish is included in this tornado warning, but areas farther east are not included in that tornado warning, at least at this moment. And that'll have to be a decision the forecasters at the National Weather Service make. I'll admit, again, it does not look as prolific at this moment, so that is good news. I like seeing storms that are showing signs of weakening. We don't want to see the reverse being true, where storms are strengthening or even maintaining strength as they were when they were over southeast Texas. So some good news here. Since we're here in corner of Cameron Parish, that would be places like the North Island area and the very eastern part of Cameron Parish along Highway 82 could see that as well. It'll be a little longer in time before it gets that far east, but just a heads up there, give you a first alert there. I know some of you watch us there along Highway 82 between Grand Chenier and North Island, and then before you cross over into Vermilion Parish. But it's this area here where Max kind of drew, and we'll do a quick storm track on that. I don't know if it's going to pick up a whole lot of spots. We'll name off a couple of these. Actually, let's clear this one real quick and maybe widen this map out just a smidge. And there we go. We'll make it show areas down near the Rockefeller Refuge as well, just to give you kind of a timing here as this is moving off toward the east at about 30, 35 miles per hour or so. So areas, the St. Eugene Church, that's here, but closer to Grand Chenier. You can see the timing on that by around 5:58. So that's in about 20, 25 minutes or so. North Island, that's in the very eastern corner, southeast corner of Cameron Parish by just a little after 6 o'clock, as that would likely reach your area. Then the rest of those places are over into Vermilion Parish, as that would move out of our viewing area. So heads up, we probably got another 30 minutes at least before this storm gets out of Cameron Parish, maybe a little longer, especially the very southeast corner of the parish. Let's go back to the radar on this, Max, and kind of reset things. It's been a little while since we fully have reset, and because we'll come back to this tornado warned storm here in Cameron Parish in a moment. But let's start with the good news, and that is I can safely say things are clear, at least as far as severe weather is concerned at this moment, for Vernon Parish I'm willing to add Beauregard Parish to this category as well. As you can see, there's not a whole lot going on. Still some rain, still the occasional lightning strike here, but I just don't see anything that screams that it would produce severe weather to me at this moment. Officially, the tornado watch is still in effect until 9 o'clock, but I'm willing to say you guys are pretty much in the clear, barring some real significant change here. Certainly the worst weather has moved through. Now, farther south, about the western third or two-thirds of Calcasieu Parish is in the clear, but it's areas farther east where things are much worse. And yeah, I know you were trying to go to Allen Parish. Sorry about that. Let's go into Allen Parish now. Majority of Allen Parish is getting close to being out of the worst of this too, as it's beginning to move out of Allen over into Evangeline Parish. But we do still have some fairly heavy rain and quite a bit of lightning going on here across portions of Beauregard Parish. I don't see, there's not a warning in place here at all, but still very heavy rain. Basile up through portions of Evangeline Parish west of Ville Platte. We'll go south, our friends in Jeff Davis Parish now. Next up, obviously, very heavy rain around Jennings that extends down to near the Lorraine Bridge there. And again, the worst is now going on between Jennings to about Welsh along Interstate 10 and Highway 90. Things, I won't say are better, but they are improving somewhat between Iowa to Lacassine to near Welsh, as certainly the heaviest rain has moved on to the east. I suspect the worst of the wind has moved off to the east as well. But even here in Jeff Davis, where we have these little notches, these little indentions, it's not impossible that something could try to spin up here. In fact, let's look at the velocity real quick and see if there's anything that jumps out along that line. And I don't see anything here, so that's good. I've been watching what I was talking about, that wind coming in from the northwest that got very windy as it pushed into Jeff Davis Parish, and where it's merging with those storms coming up from the south. That's sometimes an area that we have to watch, but so far not seeing any problems, and that is definitely good news. That's what I like to be up here reporting, not the significant tornado threat that we were seeing earlier. But with the tornado word in mind, let's look farther south into Cameron Parish, where we are still tracking this tornado-warned storm across the central portions here of Cameron Parish, pretty much right along the Intracoastal Waterway here. This tornado just north of the Intracoastal, I think. Let's loop this real quick if we can, Max, as I hear some thunder outside of our studio right now. And I'll admit, it's a little harder to say exactly where this could be. I would say anywhere along this line would be subject to a potential tornado, but it is moving farther and farther east away from Highway 27. Still some population here north of the Intracoastal Waterway, though, so a heads up. Areas in northeastern portions of Cameron Parish, you still need to stay in a safe place at least for a little while longer before this storm moves off to the east. If you're very close to Highway 27, the worst has now since come to an end. Let's move the radar down just a little farther and still want to focus on this Bode part of the storm as well, from still right around Rutherford Beach to just east of the Creole vicinity. That's near South Cameron High School, pushing on toward Grand Chenier. This is likely to produce 60-plus mile-per-hour winds here along Highway 82, as well as anyone in the vicinity. So heads up, it's still going to be very, very windy in this vicinity as well. Let's reset things one more time and kind of show folks what's going on a wider picture, and I'll let you take over for a second there, Max.
Yeah, so we'll zoom back over here. I'll switch to the radar again. And again, for the western half of the viewing area, there definitely is some good news where most of that real heavy thunderstorm activity is moving out. Still have some lighter rain, some pockets of heavier rain, but nothing quite as widespread across western Cameron Parish into central and western Calcasieu Parish as well. And again, as we just said, into Beauregard and Allen, it does look like most of that real heavy activity is starting to come to an end, which is definitely some good news. So the severe weather threat is starting to wind down. We did, again, with some of the heavier rains from earlier, obviously had a lot of rainfall, so we have a flash flood warning I see for much of Vernon Parish. That goes until 7:30. Some of the rainfall totals that I could see from that, if we look on radar, if it'll come up or not, but okay, so apparently you can't get some of the rainfall totals there, but oh no, there they are.
It takes a minute sometimes to get it to load the first time.
Yeah, so it looks like generally about 1 to 3 inches of rain, some heavier pockets of rain embedded in some of that. But again, the good news is that most of that heavy rainfall is out of the parish and it's continuing to move off to the east. So where we still have that heavier activity is across parts of really Jeff Davis Parish and Cameron parishes, especially the far southeastern part of Allen Parish as well. And if we go down the line here, you'll notice again, more of that activity starting to really push into the eastern section of Jeff Davis Parish. It does look like a new severe thunderstorm warning has been issued again for eastern Jeff Davis Parish, continuing to move southeast around 30 miles an hour. Weather Service says wind gusts up to around 60 miles an hour, definitely possible as that leading edge gets through. And again, you'll notice on the radar here, it looks as though some of the lightning is decreasing. Again, I do think that's more of an issue with the radar itself and how the data is coming in. I do think that there's still quite a bit of lightning out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're definitely seeing quite a bit of lightning. We saw it on our Skycam a little earlier too. It's just it's an issue with the data sometimes on the weather computer. But I see a severe thunderstorm warning still ongoing here across eastern portions of Jeff Davis Parish. You guys are still included in that. And let's look at the velocity here one more time, Max, right around the Jennings area, just because I saw that notch on the radar. But that's where you have to look at both pieces of data or all the pieces of data. You can't just look at one thing. Sometimes one part of the radar data might show something that looks suspicious, and then you look at the other part and you don't see anything at all. And that's the case here around Jennings. Yes, I expect it is still breezy for sure, but nothing that is all that problematic. Let's pull up the Jennings Skycam one more time if we can here. I know it's going to be dark, but there's enough city lights as long as there's power in place, and it looks like there is. We'll just kind of look at the picture here. Obviously, lightning still occurring. The wind not maybe as strong as it was a little earlier. I don't have the weather data on here because there is an issue with that instrument, so I just don't want to show it to you at all. The camera moving still tells me it is breezy, still quite a bit of lightning going on. It is raining here as well, so still storms ongoing around the Jennings area. And I think the worst of this is still just west, which would be kind of in this direction that we're looking from the storm. That's why we're still seeing lightning in the distance from the camera and not right at our camera location. Yet, being the key word there, because this is moving on toward the east. We can go back to the radar there, Max, and we can look in the Jennings vicinity as well and see what's going on there. One more time, there are those storms that are moving on toward the east. And we'll be getting out of Jeff Davis Parish probably within the next, I'd say, 20 to 30 minutes. So by around 6 o'clock, probably the worst or the better chance of severe weather will be over. And if you're behind this line, the threat of severe weather is already over, at least as far as this particular round of storms. And I don't see any more storms coming. I think the atmosphere is what we call too worked over now, that these additional showers that are lingering are just not going to produce severe weather. Let's go, and you can see temperatures have fallen quickly too. Obviously, Chenault, that's an incorrect reading. Sometimes the airport there is about an hour delayed with the instruments. But look at that, 57 to Quincy. Same for Oakdale and DeRidder, 58 in Jennings. You got to get over into Acadiana to find that warm, humid air where it's 75 now in Lafayette, 73 currently in Abbeville. But of course, our viewing area now quite cool with the rain that has fallen. The other exception to that would be eastern Cameron, where there's no instruments, but I assure you, out ahead of those storms, it is still warm and humid, which is why that is the environment that is probably still most prolific and has the best chance of severe weather. In fact, there is a tornado warning still in effect there. We'll go back to Cameron Parish with this thunderstorm, and the radar here definitely shows this notch kind of pulled in. That usually indicates tornado on that. We can look at the velocity here and we'll see that that likely matches up here just north of the Intracoastal Waterway. And sure enough, you can see right there, there's likely at least hints of some rotation here. That's areas just south of the Calcasieu, Cameron, Jeff Davis Parish line. And of course, this would be Calcasieu Parish here Kind of hard to see that, but you can see the parish lines. Those are the white colored lines there. The Illinois plant area, that's just south of Highway 14, south of the Hayes area. That is where, if there's a tornado, this is heading, and it's heading toward the Lowry community. That's on the western shore of Lake Arthur. And of course, I'm talking this tornado, if it holds together, will likely cross into that vicinity there around the Lowry area within the next 20 to 30 minutes. So heads up, if you live in the very northeast corner of Cameron Parish, this tornado, if it holds together, could reach your area by around or shortly after 6 p.m. Let's do a reset here on the situation across southwest Louisiana one more time, Max, and we'll look at the radar and show folks what's going on. There's kind of this line that is moving east, and notice it's not just us, but areas northwest of the Baton Rouge area now getting into those severe storms as well. All of that will continue to work to the east, but we do still have our tornado warned storm here in eastern Cameron Parish, as that will be moving off toward the east. And then we still have a severe thunderstorm warning for portions of the southeast, I'd say about southeast quarter of the Jeff Davis Parish area, specifically places like just east of Bell City. That's near the Lorraine Bridge, Thornwell, Lake Arthur, Jennings, under this severe thunderstorm warning. But if you're west of Welsh, between there to Iowa, the severe threat has pretty much come to an end, as the threat is over. Still some rain. We'll talk about Calcasieu Parish, because again, I know a lot of folks are asking what's going on. Well, yeah, there's still rain, but the threat of severe weather is pretty much over now for Calcasieu Parish, as these storms have moved on to the east and will continue to move off to the east at about 30 to 35 miles per hour. There's still some scattered showers. Those probably continue for another hour. Let's widen the view a little bit and look farther west. We'll just show folks what I'm talking about, that over toward the west, it's not too much. In fact, let's move all the way over and get the Houston radar to pop in over here just to prove my point. There's the Houston League City National Weather Service radar popping up. There's a couple of showers here around Houston, but we're not seeing the organized storms. The energy that caused this is rapidly moving off to the east and will take the threat of storms away from our area. So that is certainly good news. In fact, I haven't seen an update. I haven't been paying attention as much. Is the tornado watch still in effect for everyone, or have they dropped that?
I'll check. I believe it was still in effect. Let's see if they dropped it, though. Let's see. Thunderstorm warnings in effect. I think.
I haven't heard that it is not. So
yeah, me neither. I think it still is. But
as I'm telling you, I'm not seeing much, and I don't really see a risk of additional storms, so it wouldn't shock me if that were dropped, especially once we get this tornado warning out of the area, as that line is pushing on to the east. You can just see the radar clearly shows the energy is moving farther and farther away. There will likely still be some scattered showers that are around the area, but definitely nothing as far as significant weather for the rest of southwest Louisiana. But of course, we are still dealing with the threat going on across portions of Cameron as well as Jeff Davis Parish. But yes, officially the tornado watch is still in effect for everyone until 9 p.m. here in southwest Louisiana. Once again, I don't see the threat continuing that long. Once this line pushes east, we will be done. Let's zoom in back to our tornado warned storm here in the very northeast corner of Cameron Parish. Still a pretty well-defined signature on radar here. It's still going on. That's moving on toward the east fairly quick. Lowry community heads up here. If you live along the western shore of Lake Arthur, the lake itself, need to be in a safe place. This looks like it may be trying to gain a little bit of latitude, meaning it's moving a little farther north of due east. So heads up, it's across very southern Jeff Davis Parish. I'll give you guys in the Lake Arthur here a first alert that this may get closer to you guys here in the next, let's say, 30 to 45 minutes. That is something we'll continue to watch as well. As long as there's a threat to our area, we'll be on the air. We do have a newscast scheduled to begin here in about 13 minutes here on 7 News. At least things we'll try to get you at least some of the important news of the day as much as we can. But if there's still a threat of severe weather, we will be sticking with the tornado warning that is ongoing across southwest Louisiana. But we'll be updated on what we're going to do on that regard as we get a little closer to 6 o'clock. Also talking to folks maybe watching in our control room and in the news department as well, that we can try to effort to at least get some of that on, I think, as this will probably get out of here shortly after 6 p.m. But certainly I mentioned Lake Arthur, those storms getting closer to you as well. But of course, I'm watching more closely this part here, where this tornado-warned part of this thunderstorm across northeast Cameron Parish is located, that is getting very close now into the Lowry community. Very heavy rain is approaching the northeast corner of Cameron Parish, the very southeast corner of Jeff Davis Parish, and of course then this is Vermilion Parish. Officially that is part of Acadiana as far as TV is concerned, but I know some folks do watch us here in very southwestern and western portions of Vermilion Parish. As long as there's a threat in the Lake Arthur vicinity, though, we'll continue watching this, or northeast Cameron Parish too. And this warning is set to expire in about 10 minutes from now, so the National Weather Service, I'm sure, is going to be making a decision what to do with this warning soon. But based on what I see, let's look at the velocity on this real quick, Max, and see if it's still showing up prominently here. I suspect it is. And yeah, I can definitely still make a case for rotation somewhere right here in this vicinity. So I would suspect that the warning will at least continue through its 6 p.m. expiration. If not, maybe extended beyond that. That is something we'll wait and hear from the National Weather Service on anything as far as that is concerned. But elsewhere, if you live anywhere else in southwest Louisiana except right here, where I'm talking about severe weather for northeast Cameron or southeast Jeff Davis Parish, if you live anywhere else and you have any damage, whether you've seen trees down, maybe even if you have power out, because if so, you're going to be watching us on our weather app. If you'd like to send that kind of information to us, be sure and email us news@kplctv.com. You can also send it via message on Facebook or Twitter, either one. You can always respond to those, especially over on our news page. It would be easier because everyone in the news department can see that information, but email's always a good way to send that kind of information to us as well. I don't want you going out looking for this tornado if you're here in northeast Cameron Parish, but elsewhere, if you've had anything that's happened you'd like to let us know about, please feel free to do that. And I know our news folks are also reaching out to various law enforcement to see what's going on across southwest Louisiana. We'll have an update on that likely here in a few minutes as we'll try to get to 7 News at 6. But again, this tornado warning continues for at least a few minutes. Max?
Yeah, so that still continues around 6 o'clock. And that continues off to the east, so Lowry likely gets close. And again, Lake Arthur, you guys, even though you're not technically in the warning, you'll definitely want to pay very close attention to this cell. A couple other things. Again, we have this line of storms that still extends from Grand Chenier, at least the leading edge. Creole, Grand Chenier up northward throughout the rest of the parish. Still could see some gusty winds along with that. And there still is a chance that, again, we could see a couple of notches develop, a couple of very quick-lived tornadoes, still not out of the question, even if there are no other additional tornado warnings across the parish. We'll go northward into Jeff Davis Parish, more heavy rainfall, really starting to move into Jennings and Lake Arthur. I believe we had a wind gust up to 49 miles an hour at the Jennings airport a little while ago. So definitely some gusty winds that are continuing to move on through. And you can still kind of see a little bit of that wind on the velocity. So there's still some heavy weather that'll continue to push off to the east and eventually head more into Vermilion Parish and Acadia Parish. We'll continue to keep a close eye on that. But luckily for most of Calcasieu Parish, it looks like the heaviest activity is over. The exceptions being near Hayes, Bell City, some heavy rain still looks like it's ongoing in those locations. Off to the north, most of Allen Parish actually has seen the heavy rain depart. Again, that's definitely a bit of good news. Only exceptions are in the far southeastern portions of the parish, and even that may last another, say, 10 to 20 minutes or so, if that, and even less activity off to the north into Beauregard and Vernon Parish. Now, it does still look like the tornado watch itself is still going to around 9 o'clock. At this point, it does look like, though, with most of that heavy activity, at least in Vernon and Beauregard Parish, I would think that, again, most of the severe threat is quickly winding down. If we take a look off to the west, I don't see much activity, really no activity over into southeast Texas. Definitely some good news there. But our attention is still mostly focused on far southeastern Jeff Davis Parish into eastern Cameron Parish. Again, around the Lowry vicinity, the tornado warned storm is still basically getting on your doorstep right now. So you'll definitely want to be in that safer place basically right now or in the next 1 to 2 minutes as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's also near the Myers Landing. The RV park is down there in that vicinity. That's right there where Lacassine Bayou comes into the Mermentau River is kind of what you're seeing there on the, that's those blue objects there where, right here, I'll step back on the screen. That is Lacassine Bayou there. Then this is the Mermentau River here. The Myers Landing area is down here near the Lowry community as well. So heads up here. This is pretty much right on top of you now, and we'll see if this is going to be extended eastward. The warning is set to expire in just a couple more minutes, so we'll see if this warning is going to be extended. If so, it's about to be out of our viewing area anyway, probably over into Vermilion Parish within the next 15 to 20 minutes, Max.
Yeah, so we'll just have to keep an eye on it and see if that warning
And I see in the chat right now, they said they do not plan to extend that tornado warning. So that's good news that it does not look as prolific here on radar as it did a little earlier, which means that at 6 o'clock we'll be able to begin 7 News at 6, at least on the Kplc side of things. So I see Morgan Babineau, our anchor and reporter, coming in. We're going to be doing the newscast. We'll plan to start here at 6 p.m. unless there is another tornado warning that is issued. And I know we're efforting some information on damage and whatnot that may have occurred across the area. Morgan is shaking her head yes to me that we will have some of that information coming up for you in just a few minutes. But we'll stick with this because officially there is a tornado warning until 6 o'clock, and then we'll plan to begin our newscast unless another tornado warning is issued. So let's take a wider view on this real quick, Max, and show folks elsewhere what's going on. Once again, I can't stress enough, the threat of severe weather is over for probably 90% of our viewing area now. It's only the very eastern part of Cameron and the very southeast corner of Jeff Davis Parish that has any risk of severe weather left. And the rest of us are pretty much done with anything. There still may be breezy conditions at times behind these storms. It's still likely to be at least some scattered showers, but even that I'm not seeing a lot of. Speaking of wind, Max has pulled up some of the wind gusts across the air. Look at this. Sulphur Southland at least was reporting a 48-mile-per-hour wind gust. I'm not sure if that's absolutely current or not. Usually that weather station is pretty good about updating. Certainly Jennings, I would believe, is fairly recent. 49-mile-per-hour wind gusts. The Lake Charles Regional showing a 35-mile-per-hour gust. But as you go farther inland, winds are kind of all over the place and much lighter. But it's also much cooler outside. Temperatures have dropped into the 50s across all of the area except those few spots. I saw Jennings update live on the screen, and so did Sulphur. That tells me those numbers were likely fairly recent. Of course, we are approaching the top of the hour. These numbers usually always update at the top of the hour anyway. But bottom line, it will likely stay breezy even if the worst of the storms have ended for probably an hour or so before the wind may begin to subside. And those would be more of a northerly wind across the area. Let's go back to the radar one more time, Max, and we'll show folks what's going on there across the area. There's the tornado warning that is set to expire at 6 o'clock, and it does not sound like that's going to be extended. Notice that little notch, that little indentation that I was talking about for the last little bit. Notice how that's kind of gone away. That's a sign that this likely has weakened. We're not seeing the signature there anymore as far as severe weather, so that is definitely good news on that regard. And you can see the heavier rain, though, is approaching the Grand Chenier area. Very heavy rain, likely still very gusty winds across southwest Louisiana, or at least the very southeast corner of Cameron Parish, specifically Grand Chenier. Heads up, those of you around North Island will see storms quickly approaching from the west as well, likely staying just below severe levels, but still And I see the National Weather Service did issue a new severe thunderstorm warning to account for that thunderstorm that we've been talking about with the tornado warning that is going to expire at 6 o'clock. They've extended the severe thunderstorm warning across the very northeast corner of Cameron Parish into northern Vermilion Parish. So with that idea in mind, we've got a couple of minutes here before our newscast begins. We're going to, guys in the control room, do we want to take a break and allow you guys to reset for the news, or are we good just starting the news at 6 p.m.? I'm good with either way, whatever is easiest for Parker and you guys in the control room. Okay, we're going to take a break as the tornado warning is over. The threat of a tornado, I think, is mostly over. If something changes in that regard, we'll be back on all of the channels. Otherwise, 7 News at 6 is about to begin on Kplc. But for the moment, we'll send you back to regular programming and be back with the news in just a moment.